Hey, Prabha, thank you for coming in. Your work is just so wonderful, so outstanding and amazing with the company you're with, but also with the Washington Global Health Alliance. So I want to mine all of that and what led to this marvelous contributions that you're making and so on. So I really, really appreciate you coming in today to share your experiences with our audience.
Steve, thank you. I feel very honored to be talking with you, knowing your background and all the work that you do internationally as well. So, really excited to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
So my audience is really diverse. We have CEOs and investors and scientists and practitioners. Practitioners are, people who decide to go into industry and do write software and things like that. So it's quite broad. And they're always curious when I interview people who are outstanding, you're outstanding. What were the inflection points? Maybe it's 2 or 3 in your life that led to this amazing, wonderful person that you are today. And it could be something that happened when you were 5 or 10, or it could be later in your career. And it could be mentors. It could be anything, right? So,
That's a very profound question, and I think you're right. There's like big inflection points in people's lives, and if I had to think about it, I'll put it in context, right? My background working in healthcare is not your typical one because I started off as a civil engineer by education and then also have structural engineering as my master's. So people like me, you would expect to be more in the traditional engineering fields or technology fields, but ended up in healthcare strategy and also global health. And I think a few inflection points as I think about in my life. It's probably a subconscious one, but when I was maybe 10, I watched an open heart surgery and an open brain surgery on TV in India where I was growing up, and I was like fascinated to see that being broadcast. So subconsciously, I think I was always working towards like in the healthcare field or something that keeps humanity going. The other two things are more of a journey as I went from India to Canada to do my master's and then came to the US and have primarily worked mostly as a management consultant. Many industries, but more importantly, gravitating towards healthcare because primarily it's about how do we make healthcare accessible for everybody? And we do know that there are very different norms, whether they're cultural, they're social, there's economic factors that impact what people can get access to, but what people can actually get care for depending on where they live. And some of those factors they don't have control over. So there are models from a global health standpoint. What can we bring from places like India and Africa and Asia to the US as we look at our domestic healthcare, but also in US, the innovations that we do, the country that we live in is so forward thinking in terms of technology innovations. How can we make them accessible to other parts of the world? And within the US, the other inflection point, which really got me thinking about how can I help in the area of care delivery was, again, I was on a project in Ohio, and it was in a hospital which serves the indigent population. And we were doing time studies, like all good consultants, we have to measure what we see. I was watching a cardiovascular procedure being done, and they called a code blue, and they had to bring somebody from the ER and in 20 minutes. So that's the number I remember, 20, where they put in 4 stents in this person's heart and basically saved his life. But it was amazing how all the right players got together. They had the technology and they were able to respond in 20 minutes and to save so much life. So that to me said, if I can make improvements, if I can contribute to transforming healthcare, I want to be in this space. So
so I can see all of these aspects of your life. You have this interest in healthcare because of things that occurred and you saw and you got involved with, and then you have this management consulting background. You're trained as an engineer, so you'd be interested in the translational part of healthcare, right? Actually, practicality aspect. And when I look over your career, you were at Tata Motors, and then you were at Deloitte Consulting. So that's the management consulting side. And then you were the founder and president of Apne Incorporated, and then you went into Booz and Company, right? And in terms of strategy and part of the PwC network, and then Huron, right? Senior director, and now you're transitioning, right, and more into the healthcare side, and that's in healthcare strategy and innovation, and then VP at Transformation Integration with Henry Ford Health, and then Optum, where you are today, right, and as VP at Strategy, Growth, and Innovation, but you also have this other component, and that the other component is you're chair of the board of Washington Global Health Alliance. So let's mine some of that.
Okay.
Okay. So what caused you? Was there a particular person, or besides the events you described right now, to say, you know what, I'm going to transition out of management consulting and I'm going to go into healthcare?
I think, Steve, that journey wasn't as I'm getting out of management consulting and into healthcare. I think over my management consulting career, I went from serving in energy, retail, healthcare to vectoring in on healthcare. And that was in my Deloitte days. And then really saying, how do I solve big picture problems and agenda problems is when I joined Booz and Company and started working with a lot of the boards and C-suites to really say, how do you, what do you change and what are the big decisions that an organization needs to make, whether you're a health plan or you're a care provider kind of concept. And then my big transition into Henry Ford Health System was to really say, as management consultants, we are really good about taking on challenges, analyzing problems, and providing solutions. But what does it take to actually make things happen from within the organization? And I joined Henry Ford Health System or Health now in January 2019. Really enjoyed their innovative DNA that they have and expected to learn a lot. And the bonus there, in a way, was through the pandemic, right? Like the pandemic is not a good thing. That's not what I call a bonus. But the bonus for me as a professional to learn was what it took for an organization which is an anchor institution, which is also global health and committed to global health, to actually reach into the communities, provide the care that healthcare organization is meant to do. But what we as employees of this organization had to go through, right? New things that we had to like really do scrappy solutions. One day it was like, do we keep a whole floor as COVID, and or do we keep COVID with non-COVID patients? How do we work through that? And we were learning along the way because data was coming in literally every minute, every day about what does COVID mean? How is that different than what we've seen as pandemics before? What works, what doesn't work, and really learning on the fly. And as an organization moving through that, I think that really makes it very real about why healthcare is absolutely something what I would think of as almost a right for somebody to have in their life and be made accessible of when we need it as well. So my pivot hasn't been like, one fine day I decided I want to go to healthcare. It has been gradual. But like I said, subconsciously, probably at age 10, when I saw that open heart surgery and got all excited about science, technology, and medicine, I went down this path already.
Yeah, I mean, that I can see how that would inform you in the background of saying, you know what, ultimately I'm moved by healthcare and I can apply all of my strategic management capability, my engineering background, which is translational, meaning converting things into effective solutions, and combine that with Henry Ford, but now with Optum, which is a major health services and innovation company, and you're definitely into cutting edge technology. What, you have the world's largest healthcare database, right? I mean, can you tell more about what attracted you to take on this position as VP at Optum?
Absolutely, Steve. I think a big part of it was maybe three or four factors. One is Optum, like you said, is a healthcare services innovation company. So, that is definitely something that I believe we need to continue to innovate, and we need to continue to, experiment with new ways of either delivering care or new technologies that we bring in, whether it's from a experience standpoint for the caregiver and then the care provider, but also in how we actually diagnose new diseases and how we get to the answers quicker. So we actually reduce cost of care and make it more mainstream and more accessible. So there was that factor. The second one is Optum itself delivers care in the US. It's, I think, one of the largest organizations who, from an employed physicians and clinicians standpoint. So we know the business of healthcare. We know how what it takes to deliver healthcare. And then the third piece is, you know, Optum and its parent companies big enough and is willing to make big bets to try new things, to be able to come in and say, if we need to have a new home care model, what is it that would be successful in the market? How do we bring technology? How do we bring the latest digital strategies in and combine them with the classical disciplines of care delivery into the market as well? So I think all of those were very exciting. And I met some of my colleagues that I was going to be working with, and this opportunity to blend my management consulting background, because it's about consulting services in the world of Optum and in the world of United, but also externally within the US healthcare market, and seeing how do we change for the better was what attracted me.
I mean, and you mentioned this, Optum is part of the United Health Group, family of businesses, and you're in across 150 countries, and you were serving 100,000 physicians. Yes, 127 million individual consumers. I mean, and I noticed in the profiles and in my research, you talk about data analytics and things like that. So you're really into using technology for good, right? Tech for good, and I noticed you have things like our values of integrity and honoring commitments and not compromising ethics and things like that. So I think those are really great values. How do you integrate that when you're doing your strategy and your growth and innovation within the company? These sort of key areas of the company, and as you continue to grow. I mean, what's on your dashboard of what things you want to achieve this year, maybe next year, and in 2 to 3 years?
So Steve, I think I distill it down to reducing fragmentation and reducing friction, right? And you can apply that lens to a whole bunch of things, but primarily, and we talk about digital, and it's true for the global health space, and it's true for regular US healthcare space as well. We have so many solutions in technology out there, fantastic, outstanding, really trying to address a very specific problem and probably have the best solutions. The success of that only is possible if it integrates to the current infrastructure, which is not in the current age. Sometimes it's like a century or so behind. But how do you integrate that? Because only when you integrate that do we reduce the care fragmentation, do we reduce the data and information fragmentation, and also the experience fragmentation. It's like when anyone's going through healthcare, right? It's not a choice. A lot of times, other than wellness, a lot of times people go to get something fixed or because they are sick. And to be able to get through that in a better and a quicker way, we need to make sure that we have the right data available to all the caregivers to make the right decisions, right, for diagnosis, especially around the acute diseases. And also the fact that when a person's going through so much emotion and they're not sure about what's happening to them, how they're going to get well, how much pain they're in, inundating them with a lot of our administrivia, and doing this over and over again whenever they come in for their visits or meeting with their physicians, all of that adds to the angst, all of that adds to the cost, the burden of healthcare. And so to me, it's reducing that friction wherever people have interactions through the use of technology. You said technology for good, right? We can definitely use technology for good. And also removing the fragmentation we have. How do you stitch things into an ecosystem? How do you find the right platforms as well? So as we think about what is it that, whether it's a care financing part of it or a care delivery part of it, what can we get from a digital standpoint? How do we bring the right innovations in? So that we can actually, one, make it accessible to the largest set of individuals, but also how do you make it, I won't call it a delightful experience, but a good experience so that they go through their business or journey of healthcare with the least amount of friction and the least amount of fragmentation. So that's kind of top of mind for me when I go talk to various leaders around their businesses or their product offerings, or really thinking about how do you bring the right capabilities of Optum to bear so that we can take it to market and solve those big problems in healthcare.
So you have this work, and I can see this journey again, and it goes to your base values as well from very young to now. And how did you get involved with the Washington Global Health Alliance? How did that initial introduction occur? How did you hear about the Washington Global Health Alliance? And then we'll progress in your journey with them. But first, how did it all start?
Again, it's one of those where I've always believed in the power of relationships and friendship, just like how Steve, you and I met, right? We went to our conference down in Doha. I think it was 2 weeks ago. I can't believe it's been 2 weeks. And we realized that we have some common interests and we would like to have a conversation together. So when I was part of Booz and Company, and when PwC ended up buying our company, one of the individuals in the Seattle office, because that's where I'm based out of, um, talked about being on the board of this Washington Global Health Alliance. And now being in Seattle, global health is always top of mind. I was also going towards how do I work in, being on a board or doing my pro bono work, giving back to community, right, in addition to my professional life, but really focusing on global health, given the fact that I have an international background. I've lived in countries who have different healthcare systems, India, Canada, the US. I really was looking to say what brings together innovation, technology, but also global health agenda. And when my colleague said that she was actually on the board of this global health organization, I got interested. So I went to the gala first time, and it was a wonderful, wonderful event in October. And then asked if there was a way to, help in any way possible. And guess what? They had a new CEO coming in. So they're like, well, we're going to think about doing a 3-year strategy. And given your background, could you maybe like spend some time with us to help us develop our plan? So I did that for about a year and then joined the board, I think in 2018. So I've been with the Washington Global Health Alliance for now almost 4 to 5 years on the board, and then moved into the board chair role in 2020. When we got our new CEO, we led the recruiting process for our new CEO as we thought about the next version of Washington Global Health Alliance and what we can do in the state of Washington, in Seattle, which is a global health hub, but also more internationally and more worldwide. So the W can be expanded to be world, not just Washington.
So now let's get into, we'll continue on this sort of discussion and your narrative within the Global Health Alliance, and now as chairperson of the board of directors. But what does the Global Health Alliance represent, this Washington Global Health Alliance? I mean, who's it within the alliance? What are the goals of the alliance? And so is it local groups, or is it foundations, or is it companies, or is it individuals? What comprises the Washington Global Health Alliance? Who founded the Global Health Alliance?
Yeah, so I was just going to go there. So great question, Steve. I think so. Our organization, our Washington Global Health Alliance, has been around for more than 15 years now. And the first time when it was brought together, the first CEO and founder, Lisa Cohen, she realized the fact that Seattle, especially, and the state of Washington, had 80, 100 global health focused organizations. But really, most of them were kind of growing their agenda, having their roadmap, and really there was an opportunity to convene the big players in such a way that they could have connections with each other, they could inform, but totally amplify their agendas. So one of the founding members and currently still one of our big sponsors is the Gates Foundation. The Gates Foundation has been a strong supporter of the alliance, along with big players here like PATH. We've also had people from our corporate world. We used to have a Microsoft board member in here. Then PwC as management consulting organizations as well. And then we have our board members include people from World Vision, Fred Hutch, Seattle Children's, really some big players. And more recently, we were very excited to include Sultana Akhtar from Wish Foundation, who joined our board as well. So truly looking at going international. So when it first was founded, I think there were the stranded pillars, so like bringing together these powerhouses who are in global health, but also doing advocacy within our local government, so within the state of Washington, and ultimately, if it made sense, to expand it beyond as well. I think over time, as all organizations, the agenda got big, then it got small, and for a while, we were very much focused in the Seattle market, in the state of Washington, and also we started thinking about what should be our agendas. It is about convenience, which became a big part of our identity. And also, more about 4 or 5 years ago, Women in Global Health Seattle was formed, and so we became the convening um, organization for them as well. But with our new strategic plan, what we're trying to do is we are going back bigger, right? So, you kind of find your identity, you serve your first purpose. This is what I think of as the next generation for Washington Global Health Alliance. And one of the big things we are focused on launching is an exchange. And this is an exchange to bring together corporations, nonprofits, maybe even government entities like the U.S. Technology Bank, who signed up as one of our funders, if you may, pairing them up with the right innovators, people who have startup ideas to find and fix problems in global health very specifically, and being able to bring them together such that it's a symbiotic relationship, and hopefully they produce something which can actually be rolled out to across the world. In addition to this, health equity remains a big portion of our agenda, as is continuing to broadcast the message for global health, the need for global health, and even now as we have big climate change issues, knowing that global health just becomes a health problem across the world. And how do we address what's happening through the climate changes, like increase in pandemics, new strains of bugs going around, and immunities being compromised? Can we, with our organization and with our members and our funders, come together to come up with new solutions and new innovations that we can actually offer up to the world and offer up to different parts of the world at accessible ways?
So it's a coming together of different groups to work on common problems as well, but to amplify, in essence, by this confluence of different parties and stakeholders coming in. I can see the advantage of that, and then you don't get silos as well. You can sort of combine efforts and addressing global problems. Are you working with the UN at all, like any members within the UN, like the World Health Organization?
They're definitely on our list. Now, I can't say that they are members yet, but absolutely, they are on our list. We do have a small but mighty team at Washington Global Health Alliance who are focused on increasing our membership, getting more international, more global. And like I said, we've had for our exchange, we're now like bringing together our funders, and our innovators. And once we get a critical number together, we're able to like officially launch them in the market. And the UN Technology Bank has been one of our people, one of the organizations who has signed up. But we would love to get more of our WHO and UN organizations, being part of our alliance.
That's interesting. I mean, I work with the UN agency called the ITU, International Telecommunications Union, and they actually have a focus group, which is a partnership between the ITU, the International Telecommunications Union, and they're old, they're 157 years old, and the World Health Organization, and they're working on standards within the AI application in healthcare, so that you'll have some better certainty of what will work and what won't, and things like that. And it's been undergoing for some time, and it's under the broader umbrella of AI for Good, which is this program of using tech for good. But maybe that's something that there could be some collaboration between what the work they're doing and the work you're doing as well. So I'm just kind of brainstorming. Like,
I think you're right, Steve. I mean, especially in the world of AI, I mean, you know this more than most people, and definitely more than me. having founded AI for Good, I think it's like how do you use AI truly? Because technology is agnostic, right? But it's the way you use it makes it for good or for not. And with AI, I know there's all these problems that people really wrestle with. How do you have those algorithms not introduce bias that was unintended, or not exclude populations or individuals, or self-select people and who shouldn't be selected? And just all these fundamental existential questions I think of for AI. Having standards in there, having consistency, having more of a global platform that aligns around these norms and standards is, I think, very, it's fantastic. And this is the engineering brain coming to mind, right? It's about standards. It took us a while in every field to get there. It's now the time for AI to do that. But I absolutely agree. I think there may be some definitely collaboration and partnering opportunities here. So I'd love to follow up with you offline on it.
Do you work with the Botnar Foundation as well? Or
Um, I'll have to check on that. I don't believe I do. I know all the people that we've got on our list.
so how many members do you have right now? Is it like over 100 or over 200 or or 50? What's the sort of the members of the alliance now from a numbers standpoint? Or do you keep it private?
No, I think we've actually published our metrics. I think we're north of 50 or 70. And the thing is, we do organization memberships, right? There's some alliances who do individual memberships. We stay away from that. We do organizations. I will say that our membership mix with the pandemic, with every organization focusing their energies around the pandemic, and whether it's the vaccines or different cures, also took a pause around getting together or being part of alliances and being members. But now we're seeing a lot of them come back. So our membership has grown strong, but typically we're in that under 100, but over 50 or 60 is kind of where we've maintained throughout our lifespan.
It sounds the work is so important, especially today and into the future, and then to have people working together, right, and coming together. And as chairperson of the board of directors, then do you find that there's a lot of challenges, or do you think now there's more opportunities than challenges? Like how do you balance those two sides, right? As you're chairing this organization, the Washington Global Health Alliance.
Sure. So Steve, I'm very much a half full, glass half full kind of person. So I'm always going to look on the upside. I think there are more opportunities than less. Um, what the pandemic did for us as a society, as individuals, but as organizations, also brought up the fact that we need to be collaborating, that one individual, one organization cannot do it all, or one country cannot do it all. It's all about collaboration, partnerships. And I think there is very significantly an opportunity for nonprofits or organizations who work in global health, who are mission focused primarily, working with for-profit or Wall Street-based organizations. We all have different models, but at the end of the day, bring different capabilities together. And I think when you think about population health, how do you solve for population health? It's not something that only a healthcare system or a nonprofit care delivery system can solve. We can actually have commercial businesses participate in it, right? There are many opportunities. The exchange is one that I talked about. Can we bring something new to the market, to the world to actually use in a good way? Can we do things together in collaboration between, say, Microsoft or Amazon and one of our healthcare innovators who come through and take it to market? Because most of these commercial organizations, as you very well know, have a good go-to-market strategy. They are very savvy about recognizing what will work, what will stick, and how you can actually scale up. The nonprofit side or the philanthropy side of it is very good about identifying what's the right solution. What do you need to do to actually take care of a care problem? And if you marry both of them together, I think we can actually come up with new innovative ways and more powerful ways to go more global quickly as well.
So, because you have this a marvelous background in management consulting and strategy and so on, so where do you see, I mean, in your vision, what would you like to see, I guess, and by 2025, which is not that far away for the Washington Global Health Alliance, what would be like, check, yes, 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 the things that you're striving for, that in your, focusing on achieving for 2025.
Wow. Now you're just putting me on the spot and asking me to come up with metrics that my CEO then has to deliver on. That's not bad. Yeah. Kidding aside, Steve, I think this work that we're doing around the exchange, right? I'd really like to get our exchange stabilized and having some really good, maybe it's a handful of new innovations that we were able to support because we brought these two parties together, ones who are willing to think about how do you fund new innovations and those creative artists or creative technologists who come up with the right solutions. And if we can get a handful of those out in the market, whether it's in the US or it's in other parts of the world, I think that's definitely one of the success factors. The other success factors, which kind of is adjacent to this, is when you start working on innovations that think more globally or get out more globally, we want to have more international membership within Washington Global Health Alliance. That doesn't mean we take our focus off what we do here in the state of Washington or here in the US, but it is bringing in more diverse perspectives, but also more diverse organizations who help challenges to think about solving global health problems in a different way, solving them more scalably, in a more scrappy way, being more innovative. So I think those are the two things that I would really like to see us succeed in 2025, by 2025.
you know the, those are achievable, right? Because there's so much relationships within your alliance that just reaching out and saying, you know what, let's have a conversation, let's work together, right? And I think I could help as well. Just thinking,
Oh, definitely will bring you on it.
bring people to the table. You know what? Have you reached out to the there's a group called Chief Executives of Common Purpose. I mean, that could be one to look at. Another one would be Higher Ambition Leadership Alliance.
Okay.
Another one would be Leaders on Purpose. And then there's another group, the VL Danish Management Society. I think this would fit. They're just so into purposeful leadership. And then there's different executives that are really much into purposeful leadership, business and capital, and really focusing in those areas. And I think they could be, definitely would be great partners, right? Because they're already on this journey. And then because you're creating this exchange, their ability to bring together or convene other parties and bring them to the table in a trusted way, would help grow what you're doing from an exchange standpoint.
I'm making my notes here, Steve, taking down all those names.
So, anyways, I'm just kind of brainstorming. It's just marvelous work. And from you, from a personal standpoint, then how do you integrate these two hats, right? How do you integrate the Optum hat with the Washington Global Health Alliance hat, or do you keep them really separate, or because there's synergies between the two too, right? So.
I mean, as of now, Steve, it's primarily been, me thinking about the work that I do in Optum as I think of like strategy in my regular life and how do I bring that to more of the global health. But what I learn in the global health role, right, especially looking out to various different cultures and how um, healthcare works there or doesn't work there or what can be, bringing those back into when I think about how do you formulate right strategies here for US healthcare. I think it's a two-way conversation, but it's not one where on a daily basis I can merge them, but I think it's made me a better individual. It's made me a more thoughtful professional as I'm able to like open my aperture to bring in both sides of the equation, right? There's a commercial aspect to it, but there's a philanthropic, there's a global, there's a higher purpose aspect to it. And really, underlies why healthcare is so important to us as humans, but also it's so important for us to make sure that we get, the best healthcare as widely available as possible. And what are the factors that actually come in the way, and can we, in our own way, either through my regular life or through my global health life, work towards reducing some of the barriers. So it's one that I haven't really found an answer to, but it's definitely helped me become a stronger and more thoughtful professional.
Yeah, I mean, I can see this too, because you mentioned earlier in the interview that, your background in India and in Canada, where you got education, and then also in the US, that multicultural perspective has helped you. And it's helped any of the initiatives that you're involved with, because it gives you a much broader interdisciplinary, sort of transdisciplinary point of view, which is the way to get things done today, right? Working together in some collaborative way, but bringing together different ideas in a novel way. So, and now I'm going to get sort of more specific on the healthcare side. And what do you see maybe three of the top challenges in healthcare, both sort of on the regional side, but also on the global side? What are the areas that we need to, direct more resources towards? And maybe it's not top three, maybe it's top five, but things that you want to highlight to the audience that, let's pay some attention. Let's put some funding in these areas, or let's, add corporate resources to these areas because they need to be addressed in a collaborative, or maybe governments have to be better unified in addressing these issues. What are some of these areas that you think we need to focus on right now? And regional can vary from global, right? So.
Oh, absolutely. Because we all know, right? Like science is global, but care is local. So we know healthcare is very local. I mean, for this, Steve, as I was thinking about this when you asked me the question, I'd like to put in the women hat on. Like, as women, right, what does that additional lens bring to addressing the problem? And the reason I say that is, in most societies, I would say, right, the women are the one who take care of their families, right, inherently. They are the ones who are on the, at the forefront of understanding how do you take care of your children, how do you take care of your spouse, and how do you take care of your parents or a different generation, all that. And they are the ones who know kind of the illnesses or the family history and all that. So to me, investing in how do you get access to women. So there is the aspect of women as a care person for their community or their pod, but also women's health and maternal and wellness is also important. And this is true regionally for us here in the US, but also globally in every society that we see. So I think if we think about, if you're making investments, how do you empower women? How do you give them access to information? Give them the support that they need in their communities, or accessible to them very quickly depending on their digital savviness, so that they can actually do their daily things better, but also be better informed themselves and have access to the care of when they need to during their lifetime. So I think investment in women's health, or the focus around how women can actually promote wellness for more than just themselves, is going to be important to me. And then the other thing I'd like to think about is, as we think about technologies and digital and all the wonderful tools that we get, how do we promote them, or how do we infuse them into almost daily life that will help promote that, what I said, right? Like, reduce the fragmentation, reduce the friction, and whether it's through educational or actual therapeutics or care delivery, how can we use technology for good for that perspective?
Yeah, and then I guess this ties in a way to, and you earlier at the very beginning of our interview talked about, 2 weeks ago, we were in Doha, Qatar, at the WISH Summit, which is the World Innovation Summit for Healthcare, right? Or for health. And we had Mary Lou Jepson discuss some non-invasive way of doing therapeutic and diagnostics and more, and with low cost, can be low cost, And then Sheila and Shen talking about this way of standardizing diagnostics and things like that, and can be used in drug discovery as well. I mean, it's just quite amazing, but it could make it very accessible. You were there in the audience watching the presentation, and Sultana was in the audience as well. And you mentioned Sultana is the CEO of the
Of Wish.
and then she's on your board of the Washington Global Health Alliance. You know, as a person who was a participant and watching that session, what did you think of those transformational tech, or in my opinion, because I'm a tech person, I thought it was quite transformational. Their two presentations from Mary Lou and also from Xiling.
And Steve, that was the one that you moderated, which was, it was just a fantastic session. So when I saw that, it was almost like my eyes lit up. I'm like, this is wow. And for me, what was great about it is how close to realization or to productization, if you may, like, getting it out in the market it is, right? It's not like 10 years in the future. It's like now, it's next year, especially what Mary Lou was putting out there. And I think that gives me hope about the fact that, I mean, if I came in for a session and I saw two of fabulous inventors and innovators who have these, there's so many more out there that we can then bring forth and bring to market as well. So I was stunned and really, really excited about what all we can bring so quickly in the future.
Yeah, and then I guess it speaks to accessibility too, right? I mean, both of the things are about being accessible and really, our population estimated to be over 8 billion next year, right? I'm saying in my keynote sometimes 8.2, 8.4 billion next year. So, and that the nature of those tech can be applied globally to any population base out there, and that's tech, right? Technology for good, or technology for good purpose in some way. And I guess that speaks to that element, but also empowerment of women as well, right? So
I would say I agree completely, and I'll give you another example. So, well, Washington Global Health Alliance, we had an annual, we didn't call it the gala, but it was the Global Health Impact Awards that we had a ceremony for. We got together in person after almost 3 years. It was really good at the Burke Museum here in Seattle. But our Exemplary Leaders Award went to the scientists who basically created a vaccine and gave it away to the world. These are Nobel Prize winners. I think what they did, that's technology for good. That's amazing, but it's also their mindset of really pushing the envelope on treating world burden and giving, their incredible mind and incredible work out to the world for free. I think that was just fantastic. And it is, to your point, making it accessible. Their vaccines are available at a fraction of the price. And now they also have been able to develop one which is more acceptable to people of the Islamic faith, given the kind of carriers or the technology that they use as well. So I think making it accessible, getting it out in the whole world is something which is, again, very exciting. And it's right here that we can do that in the US. Like, that is the power of innovation and a country who believes in it.
we're down to the sort of the closing moments of our interview. So two aspects then. Where do you see yourself personally in, let's say, by 2030, and then where do you see yourself across all of the dimensions of your professional life in 2030?
Oh, Steve, if I had a magic wand, I would love to be doing, something on the world stage, again, pushing forward the agenda of health and global health in 2030. But definitely, like, being a voice to carry forward transformation and being an enabler of bringing new innovations and technology into this world. That's what I would love to be at now. I've got a few more years to work towards it, 8 maybe. I'll work on it.
And then, and this is our final question. I told you we have a mixed audience, right? And as I mentioned, we have engineers in the audience, and programmers and students, and then we have CEOs, investors, and scientists. So what recommendations you want to give to the audience in your sort of closing recommendations.
That's a large audience that you have, and such accomplished people and such people who want to like make a difference in the world. I don't know if I can give them any advice, but if I had to, in my humble way, I would say stay curious and always believe that you can make a bigger change if you are really working with others and in collaboration and across cultures. That's how I like to work through it.
Yeah, and I guess that speaks to taking time to understand the other, right? And then to look at common areas of common purpose, and then you can co-create, right? And those are fundamentals to something called the conflict resolution. And there's a group called the Million Peacemakers, founded by Steve Hecht, which speaks to this idea of getting to know the other, listening and getting to know the other. And that speaks to diversity, equity, inclusion. But being curious is fundamental to all of that. So you mentioned, maintaining that curiosity as well, and then you can collaborate. So, those are great messages for anybody, whether you're in the C-suite or whether you're a student, right? So, Prabha, I really enjoyed our time together. You're doing just marvelous work. You continuing contribution, all transformational. And they're represent inflection points for the world, and really, as I mentioned earlier, for the benefit of humanity, but also the earth and all of its ecosystems. So thank you again for coming in and share so many insights with our audience.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.